born out of legs.
Not
One is
above
born
and
out
below.
of
I
head is
think
called
one could,
Brahmin, and one is
once
born out of
again,
head is Shudra. But Tamil Tirukkural says
sir, the larger argument I'm
everybody is
making,
equal
Vikraman,
by
I
birth.
accept there are various
பிறப்புக்கும்
strands
எல்லா
of
உயிர்க்கும்
Hinduism,
சிறப்பொவ்வா
various
செய்தொழில்
strands that have come in.
வேற்றுமையான்.
Even religions
திருவள்ளுவர்
like Jainism and Buddhism have eventually come from larger quote-unquote Hindu umbrella. My question is, how can you
It is
deny
not. How could you
this?
appropriate that? How
How?
could you
One
appropriate
second.
that?
No, one second. How can you deny that
See,
ultimately
Dr. B.R.
all of these
Ambedkar,
Indic...
Dr. B.R.
Sir, one
Ambedkar,
second, please
I'm
listen
saying,
to me.
let me finish it.
How can you deny that ultimately all of these Indic faiths, you're praying to the same deities? How you may do it may differ. What your core beliefs and sets may be may differ from sect to sect. Ultimately, the larger philosophy is the same. You're praying to the same deities.
See, that is what we are saying. It has been put under one umbrella. Like in Constitution, it has been written like, those who are not Christians, those who are not Muslims, they are all put under Hindu. Like that, it has been put under one umbrella. What we are saying is we had our own religion, we had our own culture. And one more thing I'm saying, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has been quoting, I'm quoting Dr. B.R. Ambedkar here. He has been saying India's history is a war between Buddhism and Sanatan Dharma. It is a war between Buddhism and Sanatan Dharma. How could
Not
you
all of
appropriate
India's history,
Buddhism also
surely.
here?
Come on.
Here, Ambedkar had been saying that.
Sir, India's
Sanatan
history
Dharma
is
dividing
6,000,
people.
7,000, at least in terms of religion, that old. Buddhism is not that old. Let's not really overplay the Mr. Ambedkar
How
statement.
do you know that? Hinduism is just, Hindu is a term given by Britishers. It has come only
That's
after
fair. Nobody is
Britishers
arguing
came to
that.
India.
Nobody is arguing against that. We understand
why do
that.
you
But
say
today we know what Hinduism represents.
had been
Before I go to
existing?
Sriram
It
Sheshadri,
is
Pradeep, you wanted to come in? Pradeep?
Coexisting with all these sects.
Buddhism and
It has been
Jainism
fighting
go by
Sanatan
the
Dharma.
same philosophic principles that we go.
Yeah.
They go to the Upanishads as well. They are the Nastika school because they don't believe in God. They don't believe in the primacy of the Vedas. The other Nastika schools, Vedanta, Mimamsa, Yoga, all of them, they all believe in the primacy of the Vedas, and they believe, and they also quote the Upanishads. So the source texts are the same.
That's precisely what I'm saying. Ultimately, the fountainhead is the same. The core set of beliefs are the same. Your practice and your eventual strand may have differed. Sriram Sheshadri, the way I see it, is it also more political than anything else? Because Ventri Maran also said that, cinema is a means to get your political identity and cultural identity forward. Is this more a political fight, as Mr. Vikraman said, the Dravidian versus Hindu fight, the South versus North fight?
Versus Sanatan Dharma.
Okay, Dravidian versus Sanatan Dharma fight.
Hindu.
Fair enough. Sriram.
Good evening, Shivani. 2 points I want to make it. First, let's talk about the Cholas, whether they were Hindus or not. So we all agree that there are Shan Matam, that is 6 sects of Hindu, current modern day, whatever the modern day Hinduism. This is a actually trivial argument that Hinduism is a name given, but all we are talking about Sanatan Dharma. The Cholas actually followed all the 6. They claim that they are the Surya Vanshis. They come from the Raghukulam, and then they even claim 38th king of their they are the descendants of Sri Rama. The second is they claim that they are that's a Surya Vanshi is a Shauram, which is one of the sect. The second is they claim that Vishnu was their first ever king, so which is they are Vaishnavites. They actually practice Shaivaism. They built so many temples for Shiva. Even Rajaraja Chola is called the Shivapada Sekaran. So they are Shaivites. Their family deity is goddess Durga, so they are Shaktam. And their war cry is always Vetrivel Veeravel. So they have become to Kaumaram. And they started all their events or anything that they took an initiative, started with worshipping Lord Ganapati. So they are Ganapatyam. All the 6 sects of modern day Hinduism that we are calling, Cholas were actually living that on a day in and day out. So that is why I'm saying they are Hindus. Apart from all other historic fact, my esteemed colleague said. The second Vikraman started talking about is Sanatan Dharma discriminates by birth. That is the rubbish that they keep spreading in Tamil Nadu, that the Sanatan Dharma discriminates by birth. It doesn't discriminate. It just only bifurcates by profession, that each one of you belong to certain parts of the Mahavishnu's body. That's all. It doesn't say one is lower, one is superior, one is inferior. I think that is the play, that political play that
And
these...
what is written in Manusmriti? Why Brahmins were never put into manual scavenging?
Vikraman, Manusmriti
Scavenging
belongs to
is
which?
not for dignified humans. Why
You went
Brahmins
from
are
the
not
Vedas
taking
to
up that job?
Manusmriti. Very quickly, you've come down from Vedas to Manusmriti.
We moved beyond Manusmriti now.
It is also a Veda.
This is the rubbish they keep
It is the
spreading,
Veda.
that, you know, it is the
Anybody
it
from
is
the
the
Brahmin
missionaries
community will
who,
take up the
and
manual
those who
scavenging
want
job.
to trivialize,
I'm
those who want to
challenging Mr.
trivialize the
Sriram.
common...
Okay, Vikram, let him
common
finish.
belief
Let
system.
Sriram finish. I have limited time. Yes, Sriram.
So
Is this more political than anything else?
This is sheer political, because, you know, currently they try, the Dravidian movement always said that you know, they are not believers of God. Actually, they are not believers of Hindu faith, whereas the other faith they always you know, respected. I think that is where, when Tamil Nadu for quite some time they actually bifurcated your spiritualism versus politics. Today they are moving towards, they are actually clubbing both. That is where people like you know, Vikraman and his party and all these Dravidian movement are rattled by this movie, as well as calling you know, Hindus, or, you know, uniting of the Hindus. I think that is what is rattled by, they are rattled by about, and that is why they are trying to spread this malignity about the you know, Sanatan Dharma.
I do thank all of our guests for joining us. I think all three have expressed yourself very, very... Yes, Pradeep, I have 10 seconds. You want to add something?
Okay, so Mr. Vikraman, I would love to hear why today Tamil is a classical language, because of the Sangam poems and the epics. And by the way, out of the epics, none of them are Hindu. Well, Chilapadikaram may be a little Hindu, but Jivaka Sintamani, Manimekle, Valayapati, and Kundala Kesi are all Buddhist or Jain, right? So today, if we have these, it is not because of a Jain or a Buddhist. It is because we had somebody like Ube Saminadayar, who was a very deeply devout Vedantic Brahmin. And thankfully, he didn't put that above his interest in Jainism and Buddhism. And if he had not done this, Tamil would not have even been a classical language today.
Fair enough,
so
fair enough. I think two things are important. Possibly hair splitting of the worst kind going on in differentiating between what Cholas believed in and Hinduism of today. And secondly, when you claim appropriation of your icons, that's a very serious charge. And that should be substantiated with greater proof, not just with sentiments. I leave it at that. I do thank our guests for joining us. And we leave you with Rahul Gandhi spotted tying the shoelaces of Mother Sonia Gandhi today at the Bharat Jodo Yatra. That's our Seen Unseen. Thanks a lot for watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, bringing you the right stand today is me, Griha Atul. Now, changing time and situation calls for an overhaul of some electoral laws that fall short in ensuring transparency and accountability. Now, this is a statement that I attribute to the Union Law Minister, Mr. Kiren Rijiju, today. Now, its significance lies in the very fact that the poll panel has proposed to supplement the existing Model Code of Conduct guidelines and also mandate political parties to inform voters about the financial consequences of their promises. Now, this should be part of their manifestos against the well-defined, quantifiable parameters. In a letter to all the recognized national state parties, the Election Commission also asked them to submit their views on these proposals by October 19th. The central government claims to take the requisite steps on the same after due consultation as per the Law Minister. This, of course, as the Election Commission noted that the declarations provided by these very political parties about the financial ramifications of poll promises or the background of the candidates or the plug news pieces closer to elections are quite routine and ambiguous. In fact, CNN News 18 has learned that 70 to 80 proposals for change to the Representation of People Act and other election laws are under consideration. We've also been told that a committee with members of the Niti Aayog and the Law Commission could be formed to resolve the issues pertaining to these proposed changes. But is every political party one with the idea? Because many have gone on to cry foul. and called the Election Commission of India as an extension of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Here's a lowdown.
Election Commission is crossing its limit. They have a specific duty, and that duty to conduct election, not to go in political affairs. It is absolutely anti-constitutional, anti-democratic.
All kind of freebies are not bad. Some kind of freebies are needed. We need to draw a line that what amount of freebie should be given, to whom should be given, and how much should be given.
So let's now take a look at some of these very proposals that we are talking about. Number one is that details and disclosure of polling expenditure needs to be put out. That's point number one that we are taking a look at. Now also, a cap on paid news needs to be done. The third point is that debarment of candidates with questionable background or those who have legal cases against them will, of course, be debarred. Then, of course, decisions on election validity should be done in a time-bound manner. That's also part of the proposal. All this, of course, is supplementing the existing model code guidelines. Also, freebies. Now, the poll panel has proposed to mandate the political parties to provide authentic information to the voters to access and assess the financial viability of their election promises. As per sources, the Election Commission had approached the Law Ministry on the need to define freebies since the Supreme Court left the matter undecided. We, of course, would be breaking down the significance of some of these proposals. But the big question is the move towards political transparency. Does this get the kind of acceptance that is needed across political spectrum? And are these proposed changes going to be unanimously welcomed? So let me now take a look at some of the most contentious ones of these proposed changes. Well, we were talking about the poll expenditure first. What is the purpose of this entire thing is, of course, to remove black money from the election funding. That's the most important thing, because anonymous donations need to be cut from that cap of 20,000 rupees to 2,000. That is the reduction that has been proposed. Also, donations above 2,000 only will be done through digital transactions and check. That is also part of the proposal. There's a cap on cash donations at 20% or a maximum of 20 crore rupees. That is what has been proposed. Now, clean candidates, the entire background and a candidate without any legal cases against them, that's what we are talking about. The purpose, of course, is to undo the pressure from criminals in elections. Very, very important to maintain law and order situation. The purpose again is also to consultations on departments of criminally tainted candidates. That needs to be done. Very, very viable point that has been made. And also the fact that 4,984 criminal cases involving legislators are still pending. And this is the Supreme Court data as of December 2021 that we are putting out for you. Then, as per the RP Act 1951, this one, however, doesn't bar the candidates with pending cases from contesting. So this is a big glitch, and that's why these proposed reforms. Also, to the freebie politics that's been much debated. This is to undo the buying voters with instant gifts, of course, to provide that level playing field that everybody has been talking about. Also to mandate the political parties to inform the voters on the financial consequences of these promises as to what is the kind of cost that it will be actually putting forward to the exchequer, and also the stress on the need to define freebies, that is free power, water, etc. And what is the reason? Why has this been announced as something that we are looking at? Let me open the debate for our viewers now. Swachh politics, is it long due or much overdue is the big question that we are asking. Let me take this across to my guests who will be joining me now on the broadcast. Tom Varakhan of the BJP joins me. Also, Dr. Anshul Avijit, spokesperson of the Congress Party, is with me on the broadcast. Prateek Som, JJP national spokesperson, also joins me. And Smita Prakash, editor ANI, is with us on the broadcast. Let me take this first to the BJP and the Congress party first. Of course, these proposals have been put forth to the national and the state parties, sir. I'll take this across to Mr. Vadakkan first. What do you see the changes to be like? What are your views? Because your views have been sought.
Well, the proposals have come from the Election Commission. The government, after due consideration, has sent the proposals back with their evaluation of it. Now, the ball is in the Election Commission. There are issues for NRI rights to vote, online voting, criminalization, the pending cases, as you mentioned,
Yes.
4,984 cases pending in 2021. And well, it continues till the cows come home. And then you have criminals all over the place, across the party line. Then there is this issue about party funding, and then the issues of paid news. You have an election going somewhere, you have to take the money from another state, advertise in some other state. I mean, all this is questionable. The taxpayer is liable to get answers for it, you know. If I'm spending money, I collect money from Punjab, I need to pay back or do constructive work in Punjab, not have advertisements in the state of Gujarat. I mean, I'm just giving you a case.
Yeah.
Now, these kind of activities are all, and then of course the great issue about exit poll and what have you. They tend to have a tendency, there is no punishment, you need to get into the fact of what kind of process has been followed, or whether this is a sponsored category. Because I've heard many politicians say, well, you know, this is basically part of our campaign money, we keep money ready for exit polls and other things to influence people, and these kind of charges fly across the board. So I think it is one of the biggest steps that this government, under the leadership of Modi ji, is coming out with a decision to take reforms and take it by the collar. You see, this is required, and this will purify the system. There has to be a consensus, will be a consensus, there will be a consultation process, and I'm sure all of us will agree that more transparency, more the better.
Okay. So, Anshul, why is the opposition crying foul? Don't you think these reforms were much needed for that level playing field, for that election reform that has been much talked about? In fact, in the parliament as well, in 2019, this debate was unanimous.
Exactly my point. I mean, this debate should come about in parliament, which is the legislative body that is supposed to decide about electoral reforms. The Election Commission is clearly exceeding its brief. Its brief is to conduct fair and popular elections, to basically administer in a bureaucratic way the election process, to recognize parties. It is not to tell which political party is going to make which kind of freebie or welfare scheme and what is the validity of that particular scheme. It is not qualitative advice that the Election Commission is here for. And the problem is,
but the Election Commission has said that we have to give them their due. They wanted to stay away from that sort of committee of panels, and they requested the court for it, so they have stayed away. So that is one point. Yeah.
Well, why haven't they? No, my point is, the problem is that the powers of the Election Commission is supposed to be an independent body. The Election Commission has, with this government, has been completely emasculated, right? Or it's been robbed of all its independence and authority, and we've seen that repeatedly in the way the elections are held. Last year, in the midst of the pandemic, if you remember, there was an 8-phase election. I mean, we were crying to listen, stop this, because you're spreading it. So it's been, so now what has happened is that it's become an arm of the government, right? So we think that, the government and the Election Commission are cahoots in devising what is a kind of an electoral scheme or electoral reform in which there will be no consultative process. The word consultation that was repeatedly used by the law minister is a bogey. But if you remember some time back, the electoral bond scheme was initiated. It was, we need, reforms as far as electoral funding is concerned. But you know what the electoral bond scheme was? It was a highly duplicitous, fraudulent scheme in which there was no consultation. In fact, there was a noting in the law ministry saying that how illegal and unconstitutional it was. The RBI expressed its displeasure over the electoral bond scheme, yet it was passed very hurriedly because the government suggested it such. And we now know what is the nature of that scheme. You know, the government knows who is funding which party, and then it can go after those kind of detractors.
Okay.
So we are highly suspicious of what the government does, and therefore...
Okay, I can see Mr. Varakan raising his hand, so I'll let him have his point, and then I'll come to my other guest. Yes, Mr. Varakan.
Mr. Anshul Avijit is the son of Meera Kumar and the grandson of Jagjeevan Ram.
Yeah,
when
well,
he
thank
talks
you.
about the allocation,
my family history, sir.
Yes. I
Yeah,
am
yeah, very nice. Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Varakan,
I
please
don't
make
think
your
I'm
point.
here-
Nothing
Please make your
negative.
point.
Nothing negative.
Yeah.
I have just
No,
said
absolutely
this.
not.
Put
I'm
it
wondering
on
why
record.
you invoking that when I'm here in a capacity to...
The institution of election commission, you need to watch your words. It was Dr. Manmohan Singh who wanted maximum reforms. Mr. Anshul, you were not in politics at that time. It was the
Mr.
Congress
Varakan,
party
don't patronize
that
me.
Let me first make his point. Let him first make his point,
I am
Anshul.
suggesting to you that it is the parliament that decides, not a body that exceeding its brief.
Oh, it is not exceeding its brief. If the election commission does not bring reform, who will bring reforms, Mr. Anshul?
So you are saying,
No,
Mr.
that has to
Varakan,
be
it should
done,
not be
but
discussed in the
The
parliament?
parliament amended when the
Yeah.
voting age was brought down, and you remember that.
One at a
There was
time,
an
please.
amendment of the
Please,
parliament that
gentlemen.
brought it down. That was one of the biggest electoral reforms that happened.
Anshul and Mr. Varakan, if you talk over one another, the viewers would not be able to hear you. Mr. Varakan, please complete your point. Anshul, I'll come to you.
Parliament is the temple of democracy. Every discussion will be
I
held
think the
there.
BJP constantly
If they
needs to
have
be reminded
to
of that.
they will
Please,
walk out.
let him make his point.
This is the standard operating procedure of the Congress party. When we want a subject to be
Well,
discussed,
you know, you were in
other
it.
political parties who want to
Okay,
discuss.
all right. Smita,
the
let me
variety
take
of
this to Ms.
doctors,
Smita
will
Prakash.
walk
Smita,
out.
you know, we
That's
were
the
talking about
problem.
paid news,
No, I couldn't
and it
understand
has
the point
been
that was made.
all right.
Apart from invoking
Okay,
my
Anshul, I'll
family
come to you.
history,
I'll come to
I
you. Let me
completely
ask my
didn't understand
question
the
to
point that was
Smita,
made.
please. Anshul, thank you so
Yeah,
much. Thank you
sure.
so much. We were talking about paid news. That was one aspect that has been raised quite a lot. You know, the fact that there has been a growing chorus to actually create legal options to go ahead and counter fake news. That is something that has been much talked about. Do you think this is a step in the right direction? Because, of course, there has been this talk about how news is associated and paid, and, of course, a certain sort of, a statement is projected in the media and also in social media, which, of course, has been branded many things. The cons of social media has been always put forth.
Look, I think firstly about this whole debate that happened between the two spokespersons about the election commission. I just listened to it. I think the irony is that the election commission is pilloried abroad and it's pilloried in India and praised abroad. The election commission of India. It doesn't matter which party is in power. That's just aside to what the spokespersons were saying. About your question about about the media and about fake news. Now the election commission is supposedly given this whole bunch of proposals. There are 70 or 80 proposals,
Yes.
and fake news is one of them.
Yes.
I think there are many things that needs to be looked into as far as our elections are concerned, and of course news is part of that. And the most important part is the funding thing, because it's so opaque in our country. Political parties and politicians have found a way around the rules which already exist. They are spending thousands of times more than what they admit. And forget about electoral bonds and payment by check and all that. Those mountains of cash that we have all seen in the homes of politicians. So if each of them comes on our television screens and screams about us being fake news, excuse me, but for saying this, you may think I'm impolite, but I am factual in saying that you need to look at yourselves. I need to say this to politicians. So, when these raids are happening, the voters are determining for themselves, I'm sure, that, these political parties which claim that they are holier than thou and the election commission is to be blamed, all the state institutions are to be blamed. No, it's you people too. the mountains of cash are being found in politicians also.
But
You don't,
here I'm
don't
also
turn
talking
around and
about
say, "Oh, it's
how
not
the
my
use
political
of
party, it's
media
that political party."
has been done to the advantage of, let's say, a certain political party to set a certain narrative. And it could be social media also. I'm including that entire aspect also, because in this very parliament, social media has been called a cheat India platform as well. That is what also has come out during the course of these many discussions when it comes to electoral reforms.
Right. So, okay, fine. If I for a moment say that, okay, social media as well as traditional media, television, newspapers, magazines, every aspect of media, it needs to look at itself. When I go into the sphere of fake news and cracking down on the media, once that crackdown happens, that door you open up. If there is self-regulation, I am all for self-regulation. And I agree that there are mistakes that are made. There is fake news, rampant fake news which happens on social media, not so much in traditional media. I'm going to say this again, not so much in traditional media, because we all comply by rules and regulations which are laid down for us. And those of us who don't do it, we either our advertising gets stuck, or we are hauled up by FIRs, we are taken to court. There is all kinds of things that are there already. Self-regulation is what I'm always for, because you open the door for governments to start regulating, and you will be, rest assured, all of us, there will be a crackdown on our freedoms. You want that? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Let me bring in Mr. Pratik Shom, who has been very, very patiently listening to this. Pratik, do you feel that this is the ushering in of a new era that is going to bring in that transparency that is much required in the electoral process in the country?
See, Griha, we must remember that in India, election used to witness lot of booth capturing, bogus votes, convicted criminals contesting elections and winning. What changed that? It is electoral reforms. See, there are two reform stages which happened, which India witnessed. One is pre-reform, that is pre-2000 reforms, and majorly I'll put it across that one of the very important reform which came is lowering of voting age. That is the 61st amendment which came in the constitution from 21 to 18. Then the other one is which sees this booth capturing thing is introduction of electronic voting machines. It was introduced in 1998. And that came through election reform only. Then there was a disqualification which came pre-2000 era, that the convicted criminals in National Honours Act 1971 cannot contest elections. Now we come to post-2000 era. The very important thing which came is the ceiling on the election expenditure. As far as I remember, in Lok Sabha elections, that came to be 50 to 70 lakh, and in the state assembly elections, that is around 28 lakhs. Then the restriction on exit polls. Now we know that the elections happen in a phased manner. Till the time the final phase gets over, then only exit polls can happen. So these all things are bringing transparency. I am really surprised and shocked that why opposition is opposing such reforms which is bringing transparency. Why they are opposing? Because they know that freebies which they are announcing is, to me, it is just to buy votes.
Okay, we'll come back to the freebies part of it. You mentioned about the tainted candidates who are contesting.
No, Griha,
that hasn't really stopped.
Yes.
I would like Mr. Tom Vadakan to take that. The fact that the 1951 RP Act did not disallow these very people with a tainted background from contesting, that is one proposal that has been key. And the BJP, of course, Mr. Vadakan, has been targeted time and again because of various netas who have had these troubled background when it comes to the legalities. How do you take that?
Well, the objective is to filter down and to create that transparency and ensure that we have a clean political lawmaker. Now that exercise is already on. The Bharatiya Janata Party or the Congress Party or whichever party, they have a system of some filing of some affidavit, but that is not enough. There must be a system where there could be action taken against such elements if they have hidden information. So when they file an affidavit, they don't file all the information that is in public domain. So then if this information comes out, then there is a process of litigation. and that process drags on. Now, there has to be a time-bound mechanism to ensure that, well, if a person is hidden information which is making him liable, he should be removed from his position. And that law is also part, I don't think any political party which believes in transparency and honesty would object to a fact that you have a man with a criminal background hiding out many of his cases and comes into public domain. I think it will go a long way. These kind of reforms are necessary for the good of democracy in this country.
All right. So let's get back to freebies and the funding part of it. Anshul, the fact that you wanted to respond to what Pratik Shom was saying, please go ahead.
No, I was saying that there is no question that, electoral reforms are needed. I mean, it's an organic, dynamic process. We've had them throughout when the Congress was there, lowering the voting age, for instance. Other things, the EVMs, which was mentioned earlier, it is who does it, where does it come from, and in what manner is it done? Not in the kind of opaque manner in which electoral bonds were introduced without any consultation. That is the process. The consultative process is what is essential. Now, if you talk about freebies, well, it's the BJP who should be listening, even if you agree for a moment that the Election Commission is right, because it was them, the Prime Minister, who made a promise of 15 lakh rupees that you're going to have 2 crore jobs per year or double farmers' incomes. The BJP is the most that should be listening to the idea of freebies and how duplicitous they have been. I mean, there's been no intention at all. So I really hope they've been listening to the idea that indeed if there are freebies. Now, first of all, this whole debate on freebies is a really off-putting one, because what you call freebies in a poor country like this, one man's freebies, another man's necessity.
Right.
Gone around.
In fact, this is something that we all have to agree on, whether all the political parties will come together and come to that one consensus that they cannot go ahead and lure the voters in the name of these freebies or welfare schemes. The debate really remains about that. However, the important thing to note when it comes to these electoral reforms is that all the political parties need to rise above their immediate political gains and look at national interests. I think we all agree to that very point. I'd like to thank all my guests for joining me on the right stand. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. We're slipping into a very, very short break. Coming right back.
The sweetest, you'll do it. That's all. He'll just say, he'll do it. It is happening. Come on. You have no choice and you do it. Of course, as a student, I have a student-like approach to work, and especially with him, most definitely.
Is it true he acts it out on set?
Who, me?
Yeah, do you act it out?
Why? You don't want the actors to do well?
Oh. No, he's our teacher, our guide, our guru. He'll bring it out. He knows how to. And when you ask him, how do you do it? I know what I don't want. He's very clear on that. That's been his silent magical words always. I know what I don't want, which is amazing.
Also, if you tell them what to do all the time, they'll do what you do. You don't want them to do that. You want, when you have a character like Nandini in this, for example, it is a bit of Aishwarya Rai should be there inside that.
Really?
So she has to put herself in that situation. Each one of us can put ourselves in any situation. That is the capacity your mind has. So I think she has to invest something of her own within the character. If she was that, what would she be? So her contribution, her way of putting it across is very important. So within that is what you work in. So you want all the actors to invest into the character.
Yeah. So you design Nandini also in a way for
With
Aishwarya?
her.
With her. Beautiful. In Ponniyin Selvan, Nandini is supposed to be a very beautiful, ethereally beautiful woman.
Isn't she?
Isn't she? Yeah. Yeah. The one reason Aishwarya was cast, what was the other? What were the many other reasons?
No, it is not only the beauty of the character. There is a strength in that character. There's a motivation. It has two sides to it. The character has this beauty and this quality to her, and there's a hurt and an anger deep inside which is covered. The beauty covers all the hurt that has gone into it. So I think it should be implied. It can't be just played as a, in one shade. It has to have multiple shades.
He never spoke about the external of Nandini. Never spoke about the physicality of it. He only spoke to me about her as the character, as kind of partially he shared now with you. It's all about what was going on within and who she's about, what she has experienced, what she experiences, and what she's bringing to a given situation. So I found it interesting that here you've even spoken about the external, which actually
But
never done.
But he never spoke to you about
Never.
it. Fair enough.
Never does. Never, through all movies.
अरुण मोरी और करी गार्डन को मिलकर यहाँ आने से हमें रोकना होगा।
Rehman sir, in the launch, I know you gave yourself to even the trailer launch, the trailer music, because you were just like rocking to your song. I think everyone noticed that. I love how you enjoy your music, and chorus of Ponni Nadi is, you can't get it out of your head. Is that true for all of you? Which is the song that you are humming in your head from the film?
All of them, yeah. All of them are good.
You're asking the creator.
Controversy.
You're asking the creator.
Even wait till you listen to the background score.
Yeah.
That happens with the movies.
Always. And with them and with him, the background, what it does to any moment is just, it's magical. And he really brings the movie and the moment to life. So, I mean, full respect for the fact that that is such an integral part of actually, experiencing the film.
And the three of you, I won't even try to use adjectives, I'm not qualified enough to use adjectives to describe the kind of magic that happens when that music happens with the three of you. What happens is when the music is released, you stay for that hook chorus, that hook. But then when you watch the movie, a different song becomes your favorite entirely. Right? Which one is that going to be in Ponniyin Selvan?
Watch the movie.
Yeah, exactly. This is what we have to hear from.
Experience the movie.
Yes.
Like not watch it, experience. It's an experience. And I think for this movie especially, we got a special person from LA, Craig Mann, who did Whiplash and all those movies. And he said, why? I said, let's jump into the fire. Let's try something. And so we brought this guy, and then the guy who mixed Dune's trailer, just to, because they, you have a convenient team where they take anything, but these guys will say, I want the stem, I want the reverberation stem, I want this stem. So that forces us to work even more. So I like the self-torture more.
When he pushes you or when you push him, I think there's a kind of give and take, and you both enjoy it because you're making something historical.
He's making it. I'm just pushing.
No, the sweet torture he gives is the trust. So when somebody trusts you, such as big as him, trusts you, then you say, my God, I want to give him the earth. At least I'll try and I'll fall on the ground. So that's the thing. That's the tyranny I face. The trust which he has with me, that's the tyranny I face. Oh my God, he trusts me. What do I do? Why do I do this for me? So you write everything and say, no, I'm not giving all that. Let's do something else. Let's go score something else. So we scored and we rescored. And so finally we arrived at a place where we are, I think, happy.
Yeah, that's you till the last. You're always improving upon it. And I think that last
it's not just improving. It's the articulation of so many things. It's historical. And then you can't be too wild about it. You need to be authentic, at the same time experimentative, imaginative. And so where do you draw the line? Where do you become conventional or authentic, and where do you put your imagination?
See the keyword, authentic. They both use that. It's all about authenticity and staying true, which is so nice.
In this, he's also a storyteller. I mean, in his own way, he's telling a story. The film is made, everything's been cut, it's been given to him. And within that, he writes a story. Underlines the part which needs to be underlined and puts another layer to it, which kind of just lifts it up, makes it a lot more abstract, makes it a lot more profound. So it's like having another person along with you telling the story.
Everything that the three of you do elevates each other's stay and elevates the movie and the performance. I watch all of your songs on repeat. Now, on the count of 1, 2, 3, the three of you have to tell me the favorite song of yours that the three of you have worked on together. Maybe you all know it already.
Me in that position because each one has been.
There'll
I
be a
think
fight.
it's just
There'll be a fight. Oh.
No. If we say anything wrong, how can you leave that song?
Oh. What about that? What about that?
Can I make
It's
a guess?
all
The favorite song of all of you? Can I guess it's Tere Bina? Could it be?
Memorable, definitely very, very dear to our hearts. But favorite, all.
Favorite, you can't.
All. They're all magical. They're all individual.
Iruvar actually had.
Hello,
Yes.
Mr. Edukar. Vanilla. Narumuge is also great. Beautiful. Can't choose, but okay, so there's no one clear favorite from this.
See, that's again, if you see, I mean, I'm privileged to work with this duo right from the beginning. I mean, it's a very special blessing to be in this, to have gotten this experience in my lifetime as an artist, to have worked with both of them together several times. And dare I say, may it never end. But yeah, each one is too precious a memory and cherished dearly. You can't pick favorites. And also because you're talking about the two of them, each one is a fresh approach. It's not about being repetitive. It's not about let's do it like then at any point in time. And I think that's what, I mean, I don't know if the word is push each other or evoke out of each other, but the point is that the search is a constant to create. So each one has its own unique personality. You can't select.
But most of my favorite portions of her in this movie, you should watch.
The BGM.
The way he's choreographed or whatever she's done, it's taken that mesmerizing actually.
Well, Aishwarya, have you ever been when to get there in the room and the two of them are jamming or composing?
That's definitely a sacred dream, and I'm going to fulfill it. I'm going to fulfill it with both of them, definitely. I haven't done it, and that's a magical experience. Promise me, I'm part of it. Actually, don't promise me, I'm just coming.
You must.
I'm just coming and experiencing that.
So can we expect you to sing in any of the forthcoming
Let's
films?
see what life unfolds.
So never say no, right?
Never say no to creativity. It's beautiful.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and greetings to everybody on this very, very festive occasion. And let's just hope that good prevails and evil is conquered, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very special broadcast. It's a very special moment for me. I have been a fan of his work, his research, his insight, and more importantly, his farsightedness. He called out forces that were acting against Bharat long before. He's come out now again, and he's really, quite literally, poking the bear at various levels, and we'll try and challenge him as to why he is doing so in Snakes in the Ganga, Breaking India 2.0. Rajiv Malhotra ji, author, researcher, and also founder of Infinity Foundation. Such a pleasure to speak with you.
The pleasure is mine. Namaste to everybody.
Rajiv ji, I want to ask you, it looks quite thick, it's about 2,25,000 words, and you have tried to chase who's championing the discourse. So if it was following the money in Breaking India 1, Breaking India 2.2 seems to be focused on the discourse. So let's start from there.
So first of all, I want people not to be scared of the size, because the 22 chapters are all self-contained, independent. You can read any chapter in any sequence. You don't have to read the book cover to cover. If you read the introduction, 30-40 pages, you get a total map of the book, and then you can dive deeper. If you want to know more about how China is playing a role, well, you go to a chapter. If you want to know more about how Harvard is jealous of IITs and attacking IIT meritocracy, because there's more IITians who are Silicon Valley CEOs than Harvard people, then you go to a particular chapter. So like that, each chapter is an aspect of this whole ecosystem that we are exposing, and you can go to as many as you want. So that's to make sure people are not thinking, you know, if I buy this book, I have to read so many pages. You can read a few pages and you'll know a lot. So now you're absolutely right. In the first Breaking India book, which is about a dozen years old, we followed the money and saw how money comes into India, because the money was important because they were trying to influence poor people, villagers. So now we have to look at the discourse which is poisoning India. People know that there were CA riots and Kashmir 370 and farmers and whatnot, and they know that the press, Washington Post, BBC, New York Times, all of these, the Wall Street Journal, etc., were hostile to India in ways that is so unfair. But what they haven't figured out, most people in India hadn't figured out until we've come up with this thesis, is where is it coming from? After all, an individual journalist here and there is not going to do so much research and try to target India. Somebody is training them. So tracking where the discourse is coming from, kind of like a supply chain. We are used to supply chain. There is a knowledge supply chain,
correct,
information supply chain. We came up with the conclusion that this poison, the knowledge, this information being poison, being transmitted through snakes, that's the metaphor, snakes carrying this poison to bite and spread the poison, are coming from a nest of snakes. And that nest of snakes, while there are many nests, the biggest is Harvard University. So that's basically the discovery that Harvard University has developed a lot of poison, and we can discuss what are the theories that constitute this poison and spread this poison on their behalf in India.
So when you say Harvard, you are sticking your neck out and you're going after what is perceived to be the most prestigious university in the world.
Yes.
But you're not looking at it from the realm of science and technology, you're looking at it from the social parts of it, so liberal arts, humanities, etc.
Yes.
And that's where you believe the discourse is being championed.
Yeah.
Now, is this your point of view, or is this where the research led you to?
No, this is where the research leads. So Harvard we respect for its science, technology, engineering, medicine, those kind of things. It's wonderful. The Chinese have actually sent their students to study those subjects. They don't send students to study human rights, feminism or LGBTQ and minorityism and bring it back and create Gadar. Chinese won't do that. The Chinese are very strategic in what they want to be taught in Harvard. So when they fund, which they do, they fund particular kinds of knowledge. They don't want Harvard to talk about Chinese history and Chinese society and what's going on in the politics or democracy. They don't want them to talk about, nor do they want their students to study all that. But India being very open, both the funding is of all sorts and the students who go there are of all kinds. So Harvard has become a magnet attracting people who are anti-India, who we call breaking India forces, Hindu-phobic. They have championed conferences like dismantling Hindutva. They've championed a whole lot of discourse on why India's democracy is not genuine or it's falling apart, and why they use words like fascism and saffron, right wing extremism, and this Hindu extremists are on par with Islamic terrorists. So all this sort of stuff that you see in the Indian newspapers, you'll find that it starts in Harvard, but it doesn't stay in Harvard. And many of the people who are knowledge workers in this kind of economy are Indians. So it's not like white Goras are doing this and we are just, it's not like the British were doing it. Actually, they have found a lot of Indians for sale who want to, for the sake of money, or they'll get a free ticket, or they'll become prestigious, or their careers will be boosted, whatever the reason may be, or it could be Indian politics. There are people who are in the Indian political scene who feel that they cannot fight on merit within India and they need to be on the coattails of Harvard. They need to go there and give them all the dirty linen on India, and in exchange Harvard will patronize them, boost their ego, boost their brand value, and they'll come back and they'll be empowered. So I would say a large part of the issue and the problem lies with Indians themselves.
So Indian money, Indian minds, Harvard is using that to turn them against India itself.
Yes.
My question is, why India?
So India is a soft target. This will not work in China. In fact, China has shut down many academic collaborations with Stanford and Harvard and various places which had to do with the humanities and social sciences, because they realized that bringing in wokeism and critical race theory was not what they wanted. So that's a soft target. India is a soft target, China is not. The Islamic countries don't want it. The Islamic countries fund, Arabs fund, all kinds of Islamic countries fund, but they also fund very targeted. It's very interesting, one of the neighbors of Harvard is MIT, and you expect that MIT is about engineering, but the Arabs have funded something called JPAL, J is the name of a family, Arab family, and PAL is Poverty Action Lab. And so this is to reduce poverty in the world, and they picked India. So now imagine Harvard getting Arab money to target the reduction of poverty in India, but they haven't helped one single poor person. It's all about building a discourse of the atrocities against poor people, against minorities, against Dalits and so on. So Harvard is a place where you can, if you have enough money, you have enough strategy and cunning and negotiating skills, you can turn it into a place where they'll do all this churning for you. They'll develop some discourse for you and then they'll distribute it.
There are a few terms that you mentioned which I would like you to give us some clarity on. You mentioned critical race theory and you said wokeism. Now how are they connected? And what's the genesis of critical race theory? Is it a borrowing from a left concept or Marxism, or is it perhaps a corrupted version? Can you explain?
Yes, this is a very good. Chapter 1 is called the Americanization of Marxism.
Yeah.
Now that's a provocative term because people will say, what Americanization? Marxism nothing to do with America. America is as anti-Marxist as possible. Marxism in its original form was class warfare, economic class, not races, and not jati or caste, and not religion. It was economic. So all the proletariats and all the bourgeois are the classes. The proletariat should overthrow the bourgeois because they own the means of production. Yeah. So that had nothing to do with one religion fighting another or one race fighting another. In fact, Marx was very clear. He wanted to unify all the people who were the poor, who had no access, who didn't own any means of production.
So the haves and the have-nots.
The haves and the have-nots. That's it. So what happened is, in the middle of the 20th century, during World War II, Marxism 2.0 got created because what happened is while in the Russian Revolution, it was a true Marxist revolution. The peasants overthrew. But in the case of Germany, when they had a depression, economic depression, there was no Marxist revolution. And it bewildered the Marxists as to why is it that Germany didn't have the same revolution while they had the same economic conditions. And so they came up with Marxism 2.0 to explain the rise of the Nazis. So it changed the whole spin on that. Then some of these Marxists from what was known as the Frankfurt School of Marxism, they came to the United States. And one especially important, Herbert Marcuse, came to Berkeley, and he created an Americanized version because he saw what's happening with race and civil rights movement and race riots and so on. So he turned it into what later became known as critical race theory. Later it became known, but the idea was hatched at that time, but critical race theory was sort of in the ghettos of the academy, and later it became popular. So now critical race theory basically applies Marxism to the oppressor oppressed, but these are not economic classes. It is whites, blacks. And so now there are various spin-offs from critical race theory which bring a minority religion into as oppressed, which bring in LGBTQ as oppressed and various kinds of oppressed. So all these oppressed have to unify and overthrow the structures of the oppressor. That's what happened. Another variation is more recent, which is enterprising Indians went to Harvard and they have created something called critical caste theory.
Caste theory.
So now they are saying
enterprising Indians.
Very enterprising.
Interesting reference.
Very, we think tech entrepreneurs are very enterprising. That's one kind, but these guys are also enterprising. They know how to tap into money and how to plead the case, saying we are also oppressed and we also need all this stuff. And so there is something called the Afro-Dalit Brotherhood. Afro blacks hyphen Dalit, kind of unified. So this new theory says that the Dalits are the blacks of India.
No, but that's a sham narrative. America was always a place for meritocracy. People moved to the land of dreams because of the fact that it was merit that was given priority. These people have gone there, and whoever has gone there by the dint of their hard work and their merit. And that's now being ditched for something like this. That's quite unfortunate.
A famous book has come out of Harvard, which is against IITs. And this is written by Ajanta Subramaniam, a Brahmin herself with a very privileged background, who found a good opportunity as a Harvard professor. And the book is published by Harvard University Press. So it's the most prestigious academic press in the world. And this book basically says that IITs are a structure for transmitting caste privilege from generation to generation to generation, and it is the structurally anti-Dalit. Dalits don't have an equal chance. It is set up like that, and so all these guys who are Silicon Valley CEOs and all that have been marked as casteist and hence racist. So this is the implications of what started at Harvard in this way have gone across industry now.
But why is Harvard jealous of IITs? You use that term. So what's the story behind that?
So IITs have produced more Silicon Valley CEOs than Harvard. Now this was not true 10-15 years ago. And obviously Harvard considering that they are thinking they are the Vishwa Guru, obviously it must tick them off. So this is, you know, it's a shame that the IIT people have not stood up. I am standing up and defending them. I have a whole chapter critiquing that book which is attacking IITs and giving a rejoinder point by point. But this should have been done by IITs themselves. And one of the things I want to do is during this tour is talk to some IIT people here. To see if we can get IITians in India, because the IITians in Silicon Valley have not stood up for their cause.
Why?
I think because maybe they have business opportunities, career opportunities, they want to be politically correct. Maybe Sundar Pichai and Satya Nadella, all these kind of guys, maybe it's not worth it for them to stick their neck out and fight a cause, because they're cushiony, they have a nice job, and I'm just speaking on those people, but there are thousands of such people in Silicon Valley of Indian origin, and they're doing well. Why rock the boat? Then they'll be in a controversy. Then, you know, who knows? They may be blacklisted. They may be called white supremacists, and you know, maybe it'll be bad for their career. Maybe the corporate board will say, you know, you are more of a liability. So it's risky when you have ambition. For me, I don't need a job. I don't want a job. They won't hire me. They cannot hire me if I'm not available to work for anybody, and they cannot fire me. So I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose. I can say whatever the hell I want. But most people are not in that situation. But even I would say there are some ex-IIT retired people in the United States who are filthy rich, and they are able to afford this kind of a thing, that they could now say, as a matter of principle, I'm going to fight this, but they're not. They're looking for prestige, they're looking for some recognition, they want to be on this board, they get this award, be non-controversial. I think Indians are afraid to be too controversial. That's kind of a problem I see.
Is being woke the same as being liberal? Can I not be dharmic and yet be liberal? What is wokeism?
So the word liberal is a fantastic word. I'm a liberal. But people who call themselves liberals are not truly liberal. They are very close-minded. In fact, they practice something called cancel culture. So if you disagree with them, they will block you. I have been cancelled at places like Harvard for a long time. So many people are being cancelled because they said something that the so-called liberals cannot tolerate. So being liberal is a certain ideology, and that ideology is like a religious dogma. Liberalism is like a dogma. You have to comply with that. And if you don't comply with that, cancel culture, you're out. So the word, the English language meaning of liberal does not apply to the proper noun uppercase liberal. It's like if you had a business and you started a shop called Best Gulab Jamuns, then the fact that the name is Best Gulab Jamuns doesn't mean that your Gulab Jamuns are necessarily the best. It may be pretty lousy, but that's your name. So they've just named themselves in a way that is deceptive. Now, wokeism is critical race theory's popular form. Okay. Critical race theory is more sort of academic and all that stuff, like Marxism is very academic. Wokeism started with a very genuine and a very good idea. Blacks wanted to wake up. It's to, I have been woken, which means I've been woken to the atrocities, to the slavery, and I won't put up with it, and I'll fight the white supremacists. Very good. I am fully in support of that. In fact, my foundation funded some of these guys. But then the Marxists took over, and what was a black struggle against whites turned into this bigger thing of oppressor oppressed in a more broader sense. And not only white and black, but also minority religion, LGBTQ, caste, Dalits, all kind of the mixed anybody. So there is something called grievance studies. Anyone who says I have an identity and we have a grievance against society. could be for whatever reason.
But how is this being allowed, and or who's pushing this? The other aspect is, in the political lexicon now in India, we see this whole thing about Dalit Muslim Ekta. So there's whole grouping of Dalits and Muslims. Although the numbers show that the maximum number of fights which have happened on ground, social atrocities and fights which have happened is between Dalits and Muslims, and there are more Dalits who have been put paid or hurt, killed, etc. by Muslim groups, and vice versa, compared to this entire upper caste versus lower caste narrative. And the other, so let's talk about that, then I'll come to the elitism.
So even in the United States, it's very interesting, when the Black Lives Matter thing happened because of George Floyd being killed, it was very big tragedy, and I supported the Black Lives movement. It was blacks against whites, supremacy, and they wanted to attack the white domination of police and all that. It was extremely good. The Muslims supported this. They got really smart and said, we're going to fund the Black Lives Matter movement, we're going to have alliances. So the Muslims supported blacks very nicely, and the Marxists got in. So it became a kind of a coalition. So that's the rise of the critical race theory, where Muslims are what is called protected class. Blacks were, in critical race theory, protected class means the oppressed who needs a special voice, and you cannot attack him because you're already too oppressed. And you have to silence the oppressor and give voice to the oppressed to create a counter hegemony and topple the structures.
But there is elitism across the board. So if you look at casteism, casta as a word came from the Portuguese.
Yes.
We did not have. We had Varna and Jati in India.
There is no such word in Sanskrit.
In Sanskrit. The other aspect, Rajivji, is that elitism is there at every level in society. Yes. So even in Islam, there are more than 72 different firqas, and each one thinks they are better than the other. Right. In Christianity, there are so many different sects and so many different firqas again. Even in the Dalits, there is this entire aspect of creamy layer.
It's human
upper
nature.
Dalit, lower Dalit, etc.
It's human nature that as long as there is the ego, if you look at it from Vedanta point of view, as long as there is an ego, the ego wants to be better than others. It wants to expand, it wants to show off. And so if I can align with others who are similar in some respect, maybe I'll align with all the people who are St. Stephen's graduates, and we can have an identity and we can have some privileges. Or maybe I live in a certain town and we are prestigious, or maybe I have a language or common language or a common religion or whatever. People who have something in common and they feel that they can get together and get a preference and some advantage over other people. It could be nation state, that all the people of a certain country want to hang together. So when egos are grouped into a collective ego called identity politics, then you're going to have this. So some will be more successful than others, so there'll be a hierarchy. Hierarchy of power, hierarchy of privilege is unavoidable in any society. The communists tried to get rid of it and they failed. Even the Soviet Union had a hierarchy. There were these very privileged people living there. So all they did is they dismantled the meritocracy. They did not dismantle poverty. They dismantled meritocracy and they failed because they did not have enough meritocracy. So our tradition says, I have to look for my Swadharma.
Correct.
I should not copy your Swadharma. Maybe your Swadharma is you're a great basketball player and you're a great singer. Maybe my Swadharma is I'm good at math. So I should be good at math, and there's nothing wrong with it, and I should respect you for being good in what you are good at.
So I got to balance your Swadharma, but I will continue to continue to hold sway over mine. So somewhere that's what's happening, and this is not then equality. It's then looking at equity, saying that I'll reduce your equity and increase this equity.
Yes.
But at what cost? Cost of merit.
So the difference between equality and equity is important for people to know.
Yeah.
Equality is you give everybody an equal chance. So when the race starts, everybody starts with the same thing, and some will get ahead and win the prize.
Correct.
And not everybody. Equity says that we must have equal outcome.
So they should finish at the same time.
So we should have a certain percentage of people of this race, that race, this particular religion, that religion represented in the Harvard entrance class, because this is representative of society. So we want, it's like quotas. It is sort of like quotas. So what that does is meritocracy is toppled and equity becomes more important. And this is a big fashion in the American corporate life called DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, and everybody is into this now, and this is being exported to India. So Indian corporates are being required to follow the American system of diversity, equity and inclusion. And American consulting companies and these Deloitte and Ernst & Young and Price Waterhouse and McKinsey and all these guys are making tons of money, giving seminars, workshops, and evaluating the ESG of their corporate clients in India. Environment for E, S is society, social justice, and G is the corporate governance. They're looking at, do you have enough Dalits in this and that job? Do you have too many Brahmins? Do you have enough Muslims? So this kind of a business is going on. And so what is happening is that since Indian corporates want foreign investment, and many of the big funds are looking at your ESG rating to see if you are good enough to give you money. So now what will happen is those who comply with the American idea of social justice will get more funding than those who don't. So, but this has nothing to do with India's idea of social justice.
Social justice.
We have a different idea of social justice.
The policy is not thought from the India point of view, it's the West American point of view which is being imposed on us.
Yes.
Is that the reason why you believe that it is harmful to our civilization? Because India, Bharat, if you were to see, has always been open to ideas. We've always been a confluence of ideas. There have been many streams, different, all of them arguing with each other, but eventually coming to a consensus, and there is a place for everyone. Why would you say that this thought process, even though it's entering our system, is breaking India?
So, this is very important. You know, there is a harmony of flowers and plants and all that, diversity. But a weed is something that won't tolerate diversity, it will spread to kill others. Weed. A cancer is not a healthy cell because the body has many kinds of cells.
Yes.
But they are all in an equilibrium with each other. This is one kind of cell and it's happy, the neighboring cell is another kind of cell. Cancer is the expansionist cell. Cancer says that I'll make you like me, metastasize, turn you into another cancer cell like me, and I'll keep expanding until I've taken over the whole body. Of course, the irony is that after taking over the whole body is dead, even the cancer is dead. The cancer kills itself. It's self-defeating in a sense. But this is sort of like a cancer. This idea that of spreading in an imperialistic way. The Western universalism term I've coined long back. Western universalism, which is the spread of Western ideology based on Western history and Western philosophy, is actually like a weed spreading because it's not tolerant and not respectful of the other side. And if it were another idea along with many, and there's no cancel culture anywhere, and this is Marxism is an idea, the religion is an idea, I'm all for it because it will enrich us. We will learn from it, but it should be bi-directional. It should not be power. It should not be that they have more money and they have more brand and they have a danda and they can put sanctions on us and they can deny us with investments because we are not complying with their criteria. It shouldn't be like that. If it were a level playing field and they just brought in good ideas, strong ideas, I would want to learn from them.
Well, this book also says that wokeism is entering our courts, and there's much more in these 22 chapters, but we've run out of time, Rajivji. So on that note, we're going to hit pause with the promise that you will give us time again and we'll take this conversation forward.
Fantastic. We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Dynasty or by the Pandya dynasty. But I want to ask Rahul Ishwar this. I mean, disingenuous is one word to describe, but what Vetrimaran said, he believes that Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The Election Commission is proposing some sweeping electoral reforms, from cleaning up electoral rolls to campaign financing and allowing NRIs to vote. Now, these are very substantive reforms, many of which are long overdue. But opposition parties, almost all of them, have outright rejected these advances by the Election Commission. They are viewing it from a singular prism, and that is that the Election Commission is overstepping its jurisdiction, or simply that the Election Commission is doing all of this at the bidding of the central government. If there can be financial reforms in this country, banking reforms, stock market reforms, legal reforms, why cannot there be election reform?
The Swachh Politics campaign has begun. While speaking to CNN News 18, Union Law Minister Kiren Rijiju dropped a big hint of major reforms in the Representation of Peoples Act. Rijiju said that about 70 to 80 proposals for change in the RP Act is under consideration by the government. The electoral reform proposals are on candidates' poll expenditure, amount utilized for paid news, debarment of candidates, decisions on validity of an election in a time-bound manner, to supplement the existing model code guidelines and informing the voter on financial consequences of freebie promises. The Niti Aayog has welcomed the proposals and the intent of the poll body to make reforms in the decades-old law.
In a developing country like India, between freebies and growth, I feel that we should first see that targeted freebies are allowed. Rest of the freebies should not come at the cost to the growth.
But the opposition remains miffed on the reforms proposed. The opposition suggests that the amendments in the law should be made through Parliament.
Election Commission has no mandate for this. If there are some changes will have to be done in election laws, Parliament is there. Parliament is supreme in our democracy.
The RJD even attacked the poll body and called them an extension of the BJP. The party believes that these proposals will give the BJP an upper hand in the polls.
Election Commission's agenda is also to provide level playing field, according to 324. If they don't provide the level playing field, if they appear at the side of the government, I must tell you that electoral democracy is in danger in India.
Freebies are being debated for a while now. Even the Supreme Court had demanded a law to regularize freebies, as such poll promises can destroy the Indian economy. The big question now remains, will the numerous political parties of India accept the changes in our election laws?
All right, so the Election Commission had written a letter to the Law Minister in September where it said the following things. First, on the cleanup of funding for political parties, it said that cash donations to parties should be capped at 20% of the total or a maximum of 20 crores. Also, it went on to say that anonymous donations should be lowered to 2,000 rupees from the current 20,000 rupees. So anybody contributing more than 2,000 rupees to a political party needs to be identified. All donations above 2,000 have to be reported through the contribution report. Also, mandatory digital transactions for all poll expenses above 2,000 rupees to a single entity. So, why are some political parties unwelcoming of these changes? And do these opposition parties have a point when they say this is overstepping of its jurisdiction by the Election Commission? Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson of the BJP, joining us. Ashpreet Singh Khadial, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Priyanka Kakkar of the Aam Aadmi Party. Mahesh Tapase, spokesperson of the NCP, joining us. Kailash Adhikari is political analyst, and Sanjay Kumar, professor and former director with CSDS. I'll start with one area, which is the cleanup of electoral rolls. I want to ask Sanju Verma, as far as elections in India are concerned, we have electoral rolls for Lok Sabha, which is separate, for Vidhan Sabha, which is separate, and for other municipal and panchayat elections which are separate. And oftentimes, it is the case that one person who has voted in a Lok Sabha election suddenly finds his or her name not there in a Vidhan Sabha election electoral roll. Shouldn't we have one electoral roll that's cleaned up from time to time instead of having multiple electoral rolls?
You know, Zaka, that's a very pertinent and timely suggestion. And I'm sure those, in the